at today we have a very special program for you. We're gonna change a little bit our program, and we're gonna start with our guest speaker, Lakshmi Vyakaran, and then we'll follow with a few bhajans, and we'll finish our meeting with meditation and prayers. I want to talk a little bit about uh, Lakshmi. She is a great devotee. Lakshmi Vyakaran was raised in Bangalore and was introduced to Bhagawan Shri Satya Sai Baba at the age of 9. She was a student of Bal Vikas during the early years of its formation. She is currently serving as a National Women's Coordinator, USA, Sathya Sai International Organization. Lakshmi has coordinated annual Women's Mini Retreat in Region 7 and currently coordinating Shri Satya Sai National Peer Enrichment Group Initiative. She's also served as the president of Region 7 USA. She teaches online SSE for children with special needs. By profession, she is an education specialist working with children on the autism spectrum disorder for the past 20 years. She has worked extensively with families, and she provides a variety of services for children of the autism spectrum disorder. So I invite you to welcome our beautiful speaker tonight, Lakshmi Vyakaran. Welcome, Lakshmi. Looking forward to hearing you.
Tvameva Mata Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Sai Deva. With utmost humility, gratitude, and love, I offer myself at the divine reverential lotus feet of our beloved omnipresent Lord, Bhagawan Shri Satya Sai Baba. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, loving Sai Ram to each and every one of you. I'm extremely grateful to Bhagawan for giving me this opportunity to be in satsang with all of you this evening. I thank the leadership and the membership of the center for inviting me to the satsang. And you know what? Today is such an auspicious day because it is the equinox. September 22nd happens to be an equinox. And equinox, what does it represent? It represents the cosmic equation of being equanimous, right? You have day and night equal throughout the world. And this is a very auspicious day to be praying to the sun god. I'm sure all of you are aware that in Sanatana Dharma, we have lots of gods and goddesses. And the saints and sages have narrowed it down to 5 gods. And one of them happens to be the sun god. So it's very auspicious for the sun god. Let's briefly look at what are the other 5. So of course, first one is Shiva. All of you know he's the source of creation. The manifested aspect of Shiva is the mother goddess. And the one that sustains this energy, that preserves this energy is Vishnu. Creation has to be a continuous flow, right? Even the present Kali Yuga, as it is called, is 432,000 years. So there has to be a flow of creation. It cannot stop. So we have Ganesha, that is the principle where we don't want any obstacles in the middle. And the sun god is the one that fills in the intellect and the wisdom that is needed for this entire process. So that is the importance of the sun god. And that's why I said such an auspicious day. And Shri Krishna also in Bhagavad Gita says, like how I said, equinox represents equanimity. Krishna said in the 2nd chapter, Sukha dukkha same kritva, labha labho jaya jaya. We have to be equanimous, O Arjuna, sukha and dukkha, happiness and sadness. Labha labho, whether you have gain or you have a loss. Jaya jaya, whether you're victorious or whether you are defeated. Such a wonderful principle that has to be followed on this day, right? So I was so thrilled, when I just discovered that, oh, today happens to be an equinox. What a wonderful day to have the satsang. So we are all here to talk a little bit about this path of devotion. The question comes, why do we have to pick a path? Are we not happy the way we are? We do our little thing about whatever God we want to pray to. Why should we pick a path? So let's look at what science has to offer here and the reason for picking a path. Most of you must be aware of a famous and a popular psychologist, Abraham Maslow. He studied human existence, human behavior, human motivation, and human needs. He studied this across nationalities, religion, ethnicities, age groups, and propounded a theory called as the theory of human motivation. Popularly, it is also called as the pyramid of hierarchy of human needs. So at the base of this pyramid of human needs, we have the physiological needs, hunger, thirst to maintain this body. That's what we all do, right? We want to keep it clean. Then the second level above the physiological needs, he said the next set of needs are safety and security. So we all have houses, we have cars, we have insurances, and we feel secure when you have certain bank balance. So we need to have some security around this existence. Beyond this, he said, then we have to develop our emotional needs, and we need to have social relationships. We all have families, peer groups, support groups, enrichment groups, spiritual groups. So through these, we satisfy our emotional needs. Next step is we have to preserve our esteem, self-esteem. How do we do that? We want to be valued in the world we live in. We want to be recognized. We want to be contributing to this. We want to accomplish something through this existence. Beyond this, he said, the next step is self-actualization. We want to give ourselves a little bit push and get the best out of us. We want to draw the full potential that is there latent within us. Towards the end of his career, he wanted to introduce a 6th step, and this can best be stated in his own words. He said, and he called this as self-transcendence, and he defined it as a person's desire to further a cause beyond the self and to experience a communion beyond the boundaries of the self through a peak experience. So, based on this theory, we are all motivated, we are all driven, we are wired, we are programmed in such a way that we have to self-actualize and self-realize. Of course, the level of motivation, the degree of motivation, the intensity of motivation may be different for each one of us. All of you are aware of Veda Vyasa. Guru Purnima is also called as Vyasa Purnima. It's named so because Veda Vyasa was the one who compiled this unfathomable wisdom into the four Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda. He compiled, he put all these together, which are so priceless. He compiled the Upanishads, Vedantas, and he also wrote the Brahma Sutras, how to discover the Brahman that is latent within us. And he was the author for this epic Mahabharata, of which Bhagavad Gita is a part of. Even after compiling all these, gaining so much of proficiency in all these, he still felt he was not a whole being. He still felt there is something lacking. He still felt there is something else that he needs to do and accomplish. So he talks to Narada, another sage. And Narada tells him, why don't you write the stories of Lord Krishna? All of us are aware, Krishna was a Purna avatar. He was an irrepressible child. He was a prankster. He was an enchanting flute player, a very graceful dancer, astute statesman, a kingmaker. Above all this, he was a Mahayogi who gave this timeless teaching of Bhagavad Gita to all of us. He said, why don't you write the stories of this Lord Krishna? And then Vedavyasa composes and compiles the Srimad Bhagavatam. So you see, it is our nature to be driven towards something. So Swami also has said, and Krishna also has said in the Bhagavad Gita, all the different paths to the self-realization can be narrowed down to three. They are Gnana Marga or Gnana Yoga, as it is called in Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Marga or Bhakti Yoga, Karma Marga or Karma Yoga. Gnana Marga or Gnana Yoga translates to the path of wisdom and intellect. Bhakti Marga translates to the path of devotion, path of emotion. And then Karma Marga translates to the path of action. Swami has said of all these three paths, Gnana Marga, the individual, the devotee, gravitates or is inclined towards scriptural reading, mastering the scriptures, reading commentaries about the scriptures, getting involved in the debates about those scriptures. That's the path the devotee takes. In Karma Marga, it is selfless service, Nishkama Karma, service that is offered without expecting any fruits. But Swami said, Bhakti Marga, or this path of devotion, is simple and easy. Why did he say so? We are all living in this world where we have lots of choices. You want to eat something, you have a variety of choices, right? You want to wear something, oh, plenty of clothes all around. You want to drive a car, so many choices, right? But we all narrow it down to, I like list. I like candy. I like coffee. I like carrots. I like purple color. It's I like. We narrow it down to this. Swami said, somewhere on this list, maybe towards the end, the bottom of the list, have I like God. If you have that there, somewhere at the end of the page, God will navigate his way and get to the top of the list. How does that happen? Let me share a story with you. So there was this one saint who was passing by a town, and suddenly there is a thunderstorm, there's lightning, and a heavy downpour. So he decides to get some rest, and he sees a huge mansion, knocks on the door, and he says, can I get a little corner in your house in this mansion so that I can spend the night? So the owner says, oh, yes, come in. And here is the corner. So this little saint goes and bundles himself up in a corner. After some time, his legs begin to hurt. So he asks the owner, can I stretch my legs? Owner says, of course, yes, you can stretch your legs. Then it's night, time to turn off the lights. So he says, I have a little Gopala, idol of a little Gopala, and that corner seems to be vacant. Can I place this idol there? Owner says, yes, you can do that. Next day morning, he gets up and he says, I have to bathe my Gopala. Can I get some water? Yes, you can get some water. He says, now I have to pray to this Gopala. Can I get some flowers? The owner says, yes, my garden is open. So he goes and picks the best flowers to offer it to Gopala. Then he says, my Gopala is hungry. Can I get some food? She says, yes, yes, I'll make some special food because you want to offer it to Gopala. So inch by inch, Gopala now becomes the central figure of this mansion. So liking gradually transforms to love. And when you have this stream of love flowing, devotion emerges. God thought becomes the most important. Now I'm going to share one more aspect. Swami also said that in this path of Bhakti Marga, it's easy because we have a nature, we have a name and a form to which we can associate ourselves with. How does that happen? We are all familiar with the self-realized saint from India, Shri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So this is a very recent, he was there in the recent times, right? He was born in 1836 and becomes a priest in this temple of Mother Goddess in 1855, barely 18 years old or so. And he falls in love with this idol of Mother Goddess that he immediately gets into samadhi and begins the ecstasy process, goes into that process. So he's not able to perform his priestly duties. And he is, of course, the master for Vivekananda. Vivekananda, when he was a young spiritual aspirant, actually his childhood name was Narendranath, he knocks on the door of every spiritual master and asks him the question, have you seen God? And somebody tells him, go and meet the saint in Belur. That's the place where Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and then the temple of Mother Goddess is. So he goes there and he asks Ramakrishna, have you seen God? And Ramakrishna tells him, yes, I have seen God just like the way I see you. Probably much more clear, much better than I see you. So that's how he becomes the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. Though Ramakrishna was such a self-realized person, he was still interested in the worldly things. He had a curiosity about the worldly things. And he would often participate and take part and pass comments on the street plays. Those days, there were no movies. He would participate in street plays that were based on mythological stories. And one day he goes to a zoo. In the zoo, he sees lion and then immediately goes into samadhi. After he comes out of the samadhi, he tells the disciples that he envisioned Mother Goddess riding on this lion, majestic lion, with all the weapons in her hands. So the lion became an anchor for him to self-realize, where he could connect and become one with divinity. So he would divinize all the worldly material aspects, and he would always put it in the context of the Mother Goddess. Another true story is that of Sri Ramanuja. He's a great philosopher and a saint who propounded the philosophy of Vishishta Advaita. So there was this town called Srirangam, and in this town of Srirangam, there is a famous Vishnu temple where the idol, the statue, is in a reclining position on the serpent. And like any other temple, lot of rituals and worship happened in the temple too. On one such occasion, lots of people have gathered there and everybody is focused on the statue and the idol, which was so beautifully decorated in flowers and silk and so on and so forth. There's a young man and a young woman. And this young man is focused on the eyes of this young woman, and he holds an umbrella above her. South India is very hot in the summers. So Sri Ramanujacharya, along with his disciples, is also there in this temple and notices this young man, the behavior. And then he calls for him. And he says, why are you staring at this young woman? Then this young man, who's a wrestler, very popular, his name is Dhanurdasha, he says, she has the most beautiful eyes and I cannot resist but look into her eyes. Then Sri Ramanujacharya asks him and tells him, do you want to see eyes that are much more beautiful than the eyes of this young woman? And Dhanurdasha, this wrestler, says, yes, I would like to see them. So Ramanujacharya tells him, come to the temple tomorrow morning. So this wrestler presents himself at the temple the next day morning. And after the worship, it's customary to do arti, waving the camphor, right? Flame of camphor. And whenever this is done in most temples, they pause when you come to the different organs of the deity, the hands and then the face. So as the priest waves the camphor and it is directed towards the face of the idol, Sri Ramanujacharya tells this wrestler, look into the eyes of the statue. The statue comes alive and this wrestler, Dhanurdasha, looks into the eyes of Mahavishnu and goes into Samadhi. Of course, Ramanujacharya also goes into Samadhi. So in this path of devotion, there is always an anchor. That is another advantage we have. Like in the case of the first story, how Gopala was an anchor. And then the second case of Ramakrishna, lion became the anchor. And now eyes become the anchor. Now I will share what Swami has said about this path of devotion. So Swami was inaugurating a science exhibition of the higher secondary school in Puttaparthi. And there are many exhibits and Swami was walking through these exhibits. And then he pauses at an exhibit that was depicting the three paths, the Bhakti Marga, the Karma Marga, and then the Jnana Marga. The selfless service or the Karma Marga was shown, depicted, presented by a bullock cart, slow and steady and safe. Then Bhakti Marga, the path of devotion, was depicted by a car. And the path of wisdom or intellect was depicted by an airplane. So Swami looked at all this and then asked the child to explain. He says, yes, Swami, this is how I have understood the three. Swami gives a smile and as he turns back, makes a profound statement. He says, yes, airplane is the fastest. But then if it crashes, there is no getting up. You are gone forever. What a profound lesson Swami drove home. Yes, the bullock cart is slow and safe. And the airplane is fast, but extremely dangerous. Therefore, this path of devotion is a good blend of both safety as well as the speed. In a discourse in August 1996, Swami narrates another story. Bhakti Deva and Gnanadeva are walking through the forest and they get thirsty. They spot a well at a distance and then they go to the well, but unfortunately, the water in the well is way below, and so they're not able to reach it. Gnanadeva tells, Gnanam evatu kaivalyam, means it is only through this path of wisdom can you reach oneness. So he transforms himself into a bird, swoops down into the well and gets his drink and then flies away. Bhakti Deva stands where he is and intensely begins to pray to the Lord. And he opens his eyes only when he senses the wetness on his feet. So Swami said, in this path of devotion, if you pray intensely with purity, whatever you ask for will come running to your feet. Bhakti Deva and Gnanadeva decide to write a letter to each other. So Bhakti Deva writes a letter on a piece of blank paper and then he posts it to Gnanadeva. Gnanadeva receives this letter and says, oh, it's just a piece of blank paper. There's nothing in it. And he is the path of wisdom and intellect, right? So he has read all the scriptures. So he fills up pages after pages after pages after pages. And then Swami said, at the end, it's only writing, 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 and reading, reading, reading. And there is no time to practice what you have read. So Swami said, the path of devotion is simple and it is easy because it deals with emotion, love, and compassion. And it's always towards serving the Lord. And here in this path, the action we do also is in the context of remembering the name of the Lord. And the feeling like love, liking, emotion, all this is quite natural to us. We don't have to develop it. We don't have to inculcate. This is all that is there within us. So Swami said, though one follows the path of wisdom or the path of action, the underlying current, devotion, is always available to us. What a beautiful and a profound lesson. Then Swami says, so what could be the prerequisite? Do you think all of us will have this within us? Swami said, the prerequisite to this path of devotion is developing faith. How do we develop faith in God? That's when, right, he can get on the list once we develop a faith. So Swami said, whenever we experience peace, calm, love, compassion, Swami said, know that God is around us. What a beautiful way of expressing it, right? So whenever we have this, I'm sure all of us have had experiences where we have experienced the peace and then the calm. So I'll just share a personal experience when this happened to me. And I'm sure you all will recall so many such experiences. This is nothing, not very special, but then just to send the trigger. So my son was at school. He went to UC Berkeley, and then, he lost his ID card in the very second week of school. And he went to the canteen, got some food, and then dropped this Berkeley ID somewhere. And so he was very agitated and, of course, very fearful of the situation, because without an ID, you just cannot enter anywhere, libraries, classrooms, nothing is possible without the ID. So he called me and then he told me, Mom, I just lost my ID. I don't know where it is. So I was doing something. I just dropped everything and then went to my altar and then started saying the Gayatri Mantra. It's my favorite. Believe it or not, within 5 minutes, my son called back and told me that he found the ID. So there is this agitation and fearfulness for some time, but immediately peace descended on both of us. So that is the kind of experience. And when we have that kind of experience, Swami said, know that God is around us. So another aspect which Swami says to develop faith is to read the stories of all these sacred sages and saints, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel, and believe in their stories, how they became self-realized. So these are the two paths that Swami asked us to develop the faith and then get into this path of devotion. Now, this path of devotion is so vast, and there are so many practices within this path. And there are 9 practices that have been narrowed down to, and they are called as Navavidhi Bhakti. The first of these is called as Shravanam. Shravanam is listening to the glories of the Lord. And this path was practiced by a king called Parikshit. Parikshit happens to be the grandson of Arjuna, the main character of the Bhagavad Gita. And he was the one to whom Krishna preached Bhagavad Gita. So Parikshit is a king, and he goes to the forest and is wandering in a forest and gets thirsty. He spots an ashram of a sage, and expecting that he would get some water, enters the ashram. But the sage in the ashram is in samadhi. And so he's a little annoyed, a little irritated, disappointed, and then finds his way out. But then on the way, he finds a dead snake, a dead serpent. He takes the serpent and then garlands sage Shringi, that's his name, and walks out of the ashram and then goes on his way. The son of this sage enters the ashram and then finds that somebody has garlanded his father with a dead serpent. He's annoyed and he's mad. He curses this king and he says, whoever did this will be dead in 7 days through snake bite. So this information reaches King Parikshit, and then he is like, okay, I'm going to die in 7 days because of this curse. What is it that I can do in 7 days so that I can be enlightened, I can be self-realized? He approaches his guru and his guru says, listen to the stories of the Lord. So King Parikshit listens to Srimad Bhagavatam and then is liberated. So the second practice is called, Shravanam is the first one, second one is Kirtanam, singing to the Lord. First one was listening to the stories of the Lord. The second is singing to the Lord. Singing to the Lord was practiced by Narada and also Mirabai. Mirabai was a great saint from India again, who would sing glories of Lord Krishna. She belonged to the royal family, and whenever she would make this connection with Krishna, she would go into ecstasy. She would dance and sing on the streets, in the marketplaces, and in the parks. And the royal family was not very appreciative of this behavior. They thought it was a slur on the prestige of the family, so they decide to get rid of her. So her brother-in-law mixes poison in milk and offers it to Meera. And she is in the habit of offering everything to Sri Krishna before she takes it. So she offers this to Krishna, and then Krishna changes the poison to nectar. So that is how she's protected by the Lord. And then she makes that connection with Lord through singing the glory of the Lord. The third practice is Vishnu Smaranam, or what Swami calls it as Namaskarana, chanting the name of the Lord. Chanting the name of the Lord was practiced by Prahalada. His father was a demon king, and he ordered the people in his kingdom, all the subjects, to pray to the king. He said the king is above God. And so he wanted to replace God. And so that's what he wanted from his subjects and the people in his kingdom. However, his son, Prahalada, was opposed to this thought. He said nobody is above God and not even the king. He tries to explain and make peace with the child, but then the child doesn't listen. So he begins to hate his own son and devises many methods to kill his son. But Prahalada continuously chants the name of Narayana, and Narayana comes to his rescue, and then that is how he realizes divinity. So we learned about Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Then the fourth practice is called Padasivanam, or serving the lotus feet of the Lord. The best example for this is Goddess Lakshmi. She herself, being an embodiment of wealth, prosperity, still is very humble and worships the feet of Narayana. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam. Archanam is worshipping the Lord. There was a demon king who was a tyrant committing a lot of atrocities on the people of his kingdom, to such a point that Mother Earth finds it very difficult to sustain creation. And because of this adharmic way of ruling, saints and sages decide to put an end to this tyrant king. So they put him to sleep. His successor is King Prithu. Prithu takes on to worshipping the Mother Earth, to reassure her, to make her feel secure. So once again, she begins to sustain creation. And because of Prithu, Mother Earth again begins her creation. Mother Earth is also called as Prithvi, Prithu and Prithvi. Just like how Arjuna is called as Kaunteya because he's the son of Mother Kunti. Lakshmi is also called as Narayani because she's the consort of Narayana. So that's another way of naming. So after Archanam, the next practice is called as Vandanam. Vandanam is praying to the Lord. And the person who practiced this is Akrura. Akrura was the uncle of Lord Krishna, and he was a minister in the court of King Kansa, who was dead against Krishna, who always wanted to kill Krishna. So King Kansa asks Akrura to invite Krishna to his kingdom, Mathura. And King Kansa thinks that he can trick Krishna because Akrura is an ardent devotee of Krishna. Krishna will not refuse the invitation of Akrura. So with this thought in mind, Kansa asks Akrura to bring Krishna to the kingdom of Mathura. So when Krishna comes to Mathura, and on the way, Akrura stops the chariot along the banks of the river Yamuna because he gets thirsty. He's an ardent devotee of Krishna, and when he goes to drink water in this river, he sees this beautiful cosmic form of Krishna. Then he rubs his eyes and thinks, is this real what I'm seeing? And then looks back, but Krishna is there on the chariot and smiles at him. This is how Akrura is self-realized through prayers. The next practice is called as Dasya. Dasya is servitude, being a servant of God. There cannot be a better example than Hanuman, who was the servant of Lord Rama. So when he is held captive by this demon king, Ravana, Ravana asks him, who are you? He says, Dasoham Kausalendraya. He says, I'm the servant to the son of Kausalya, that is Rama. So he attains self-realization, self-liberation through this path of being the servant of the Lord. The next practice is called as Sakhya. Sakyam means friendship. Arjuna and Krishna were wonderful friends. And so when Arjuna is despondent on the battlefield, Krishna comes to his rescue and then enlightens him and teaches him this beautiful song, the Bhagavad Gita, and also shows Arjuna the cosmic form of himself. The last path is called as Atmanivedanam or self-surrender. And the person who practiced this is King Mahabali. He was a great ruler, loved by his people of the kingdom, and he decides to perform a lot of sacrifices and rituals. One such occasion, he wants to give a lot of gifts to everybody in the kingdom. And then there is this one small dwarf who comes and he asks for a gift. Then Mahabali says, what is it that you want? This small, beautiful, radiant face, young man. And then he says, I want 3 cubits of land, 3 steps of land. First step, he measures the entire earth. Second step, he measures the entire sky. And then he asks this king, where is my third step? How do I get that? So Mahabali surrenders to Lord. And this dwarf is none other than one of the avatars of Vishnu, which is called as Vamana avatar. So this is an example of Atmanivedana. Just to summarize the mind, I know I went very fast. We have Shravanam, listening to the stories of the Lord. Kirtanam, singing the glory of the Lord. Vishnu Smaranam, chanting the name of the Lord. Padasivanam, worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. Archanam, worshipping the Lord. Vandanam, praying to the Lord. Dasyam, having a servant and a master relationship with the Lord. Sakyam, being friends with God. Atmanivedanam is self-surrender. So these are the 9 paths to devotion. And Krishna also said in the Bhagavad Gita that all the different kinds of devotees fall into 4 categories. They are artha. We usually become a devotee when we are in distress, right? We pray intensely when we want something. Then the second category, he said, are those devotees that pray to me because they want some material benefit. And he called them artharthi. The third category of devotees, Krishna said, are jignasu. There's some inquisitiveness lurking somewhere in the corner of the heart to know about Lord, to know about the inherent divinity within us. The fourth one, Krishna said, is sannyasa, who really wants to reach God, whose every cell in the body is yearning to meet God. Devotion is a bridge between devotee and divinity. I hope I'm doing good with time. So summarizing it and bringing it all together, let us hope that we are able to cross that bridge and then reach the inner divinity within all of us and experience that oneness, self-realization through this path of devotion. So I think I'll stop here. I did hear somebody saying they wanted to leave at 8:15. And if you have any questions, let's try. I'm not sure I have all the answers, but I'll try my best.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, dear Lakshmi. If anyone have a question, please feel free to open your camera and ask the question.
I hope I was not too fast. I'm sorry.
It was beautiful. You woke me up.
So, first of all, are we agreed to just drop off the bhajan so we could we could have more time for Q&A? Is it okay?
Of course, definitely. I agree with you. Yes, sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you.
Priti, did you want to say something?
No, I said Ananya has question.
Oh, please, Ananya, go ahead.
Sai Ram. So Lakshmi, so out of the 9 types of devotion, which do you identify most with?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, I identify myself with the singing. I like singing. Yes, I like singing. And so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next me. So, until last me, I'm really interested actually in your background as education for the mental health of autism spectrum disorder. So I know that it's by the book because I'm trained as a therapist. I know is it by the book is really something that bothering me. How would you apply Swami teaching to this therapy session? Because I know things behind that is as a devoted mother and as a devoted also education or therapist, there must be something that is not, you are not agree with the book. So right. what is it, for the example? Could you tell?
Very good question, Harita. I myself was like, there were so many people, you know, when I went into this autism and then I specialized in this area of education, people would ask me, don't you feel depressed? You know, how do you put all this into practice? It's very difficult. And I run a classroom where all my kids are on the spectrum. And of course, you know, these families are also pretty difficult because they are going through a lot. So coming back to your question, how do you apply Swami's teachings? How do you bring in spirituality into your teaching? That's a question, correct?
Correct.
Yes, okay. So there is this wonderful story I came across, and this was narrated by Professor Bhagya. Okay, so I served this one young girl. Her name is Sophie. She's about 5 years old. I've been serving her from when she had a diagnosis, 2.5. And then she's still good to go. Now she's turned 6. So she has multiple disabilities and she just cannot speak. And so I do a home program with her. Whenever I go to her, I experience this peace and calm. I run my classroom in the morning and go to her at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that is my really peaceful time with Sophie. In the beginning, I would think, oh my goodness, she must be suffering. She has all these disabilities. You know, she has a tube here, she has a tube there. She's not able to hear. She has these glasses. She has pipes into her nose, everything. Then this story really shook me up. So the story goes like this. So there was this couple who were ardent devotees of Bhagawan, and all they wanted to do was serve Bhagawan and nothing else. But then one fine day they come to Bhagawan and say, we want to have a child. Bhagawan is shocked. He says, all these years you didn't want anything. Now you want a child. Okay, I bless you. So 9 months time, they give birth to a baby. And then this child is not meeting any of the milestones. Then they run back to Swami and they say, Swami, what is this? You know, this child is not meeting any of the milestones. What's the problem here? And Swami says that there is a sage in the Himalayas who is in Samadhi. And I went to meet him and he asked me if there was a service that I could offer to him. And it was during that same time, you both came to me asking me for a child. So this child that you have who is not doing anything, who is not meeting all these milestones, is none other than that sage in Samadhi. He is in Samadhi, so he's not going to meet the milestones. I thought, what a profound lesson. We do not know whom we are serving. Probably Sophie with multiple disability is some yogini. I don't know. Maybe she's in Samadhi. I don't know. So this really opened my eyes. And then I was like, each of these children, they are unique in their own way. They have a different way of learning. But we don't know what's the cause and what it is. So from then on, I was like, yes, this is a beautiful story I came across. And so that's how I began to look at these children from different lens than the books. And yeah, that's been my take on it. Yeah.
One more question, Lakshmi. By 2025, it says that the statistic of the autistic children is 1 of 8. What would you say about this? Why God let those children become more and more become autism?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I think this autism, it did prevail even in the previous years, Harita. All I think is now there is more awareness, there's more diagnoses, and more people are getting diagnosed. I'm so positive. So many of my own family members are somewhere on the spectrum, my grandmothers and, but they didn't have a diagnosis. This kind of a system did not exist in those times. Whereas now I think, there are all these clinics and there's a lot of awareness of autism. And that's why I think the numbers are actually going up. That's my take on this. I've been in this field for about 22 years now. So
yeah, my question, why God let all these children become autism?
Beg your pardon?
Yeah, why God let those children become autistic?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The numbers, what we find in statistics is because of an awareness and then having different categories of diagnoses. Now you have, PDD and then, mild autism and moderate autism and severe autism and different levels of therapies and then services. And so I think it is because of that we find that increase in the number, not that it did not exist in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Saram Lakshmi, I have a question for you. I know that you're coming from the Bangalore area, so you probably had a few experiences with Bhagavan. If you could share a little bit about your first meeting when you met Swami, or a little bit about your experiences with Swami, personal experiences.
Sure, yes. So actually we met Swami through my paternal aunt. She and her mother, they were ardent devotees of Shri Baba. Her mother particularly was an ardent devotee of Shri Baba. And Swami in 1964 was touring Andhra Pradesh. That's the state to which I belong. And that's where Puttaparthi is also. So Swami was touring in 1964, and he goes to this village where my aunt's mother lived. And then she also, of course, visits him in that town. And then he calls her by name and he says, I will come to your house. And he reassures my aunt's mother that he is none other than the incarnation of Shirdi Baba. That's how my aunt and her family got into Bhagawan Shri Sathya Sai Baba's fold. Swami called her to Puttaparthi, and my aunt had a house in Puttaparthi. And so that is the relationship she had. So my aunt was an ardent devotee of Bhagawan. So my aunt was in New Delhi, and then they got a transfer to Bangalore. So they came to Bangalore and they said, oh, why are you not going to Whitefield? And Swami is here. So we are not aware. So she was the one that introduced us to Bhagawan. And the very first darshan, my dad and my brother were on the men's side, and me and my mom on the ladies' side with my aunt. And of course, my aunt was there. So Swami came straight to my aunt and she said, see, I have my brother-in-law and his family here. And then Swami talked to all of us, and then he gave us Pada Namaskaram, and he said, very santosham that you have all come, and then keep coming. And so that was our first experience, and there was no looking back. This was, I'm talking of 1968, 69. And that's when Bal Vikas was formed. And that's how I got into Bal Vikas. And those days in Whitefield, there was nothing, Daniela. It was just full of sand, and then monkeys and deers. And we had these huge gulmahar trees, the red flame trees. And then my family is very conservative. So every weekend, particularly during the summer months, Swami would come to Vrindavan. And we knew nothing else but going to Vrindavan on every single Sunday. Swami was there. I have not seen movies in my childhood, never ate out. So that was the kind of upbringing I have had. I was, of course, went to Bal Vikas, and we had GP Rajaratnam and Professor Gokak and Kasturi and all these Suri Bhagavantam, and all these people interact with us in our Bal Vikas classes. Swami used to come to our annual days, so on and so forth. Let me stop there.
Yeah, so my question is, when you first saw me, did you realize that he's God right away, or it took you some time to get to that awareness?
Yes, it took me some time to get to that awareness. Initially, because I was a little girl, so I knew that I had to follow my parents. My parents told me he is God, so that was the first direction. You know how it is, right? Parents tell you, they take you, and you are involved, so that's how it is. Until and unless I had my own experience during one of the events where Swami performed what is called as the thread ceremony, and he used to do that. And so my brother had this ceremony performed by Swami, and it was during that, as a little girl, I wanted to present to Swami this wonderful garland that was made out of sandalwood shavings, and we would get that in Bangalore. And for some reason, we didn't have time to shop that. So my father just gave me a little flower garland, which he bought just outside the gate of the Vrindavan ashram. So I was not happy with the garland. So Swami came to my family, and he did all that to my brother. And then my parents thought that I should garland Swami with this flower garland. So I was not very happy, but I just garlanded Swami with that. But then somebody else had given Swami this garland of sandalwood shavings. And then Swami gave that to me, and he said in my language, which is Telugu, take it and then put this on the picture you have in your room. So that kind of confirmed and sealed it for me, because I had the desire that I want to present the best to Swami, which was a sandalwood garland in those days, in my times, but I could not do it. That's when I was like, oh, so he knew that I wanted this, but I did not have it, so he gave it to me. So that it was from then on, I knew that I could make that connection with Swami. And and I used to participate in athletics and so many other events in school and college, and everywhere I would carry vibhuti and a picture of Swami with me, and we all do that, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think Ananya has another question for you.
So Lakshmi, I know that high functioning autism, it used to be called as Asperger's before, right? Is it still considered in the spectrum?
Yes, it is considered in the spectrum.
So I know someone whose mom is never diagnosed of it, but suspected, so has a lot of like interpersonal relationship issues. So how would the child, who is an adult now, but how would deal with it? Is there any books, or is there any therapy that the person can go? Because obviously the mother functions well, but has an issue with like interpersonal relationship with most people.
Exactly. Okay. It's quite, I'm going to share my own personal experience here, Ananya, because I know it's going to be useful. So my own mother-in-law had that, believe it or not. She was never diagnosed. And then,
Yeah.
and nobody knew. Everybody knew that, like how you're saying, she would have these little conflicts wherever she went, and
and hyper focused and
exactly.
hyper focused. Yeah.
Exactly. If something did not go her way or the structure was disturbed, she would throw a fit and tantrum and everything. And then once I got into this education, then I said, it's good to get her checked out. And then at the age of, I would say, when she was 70, 75, I think 70 or 75, we started, we were able to convince her, and we took her to the therapist, and she was evaluated. And then she started going for therapy, and that helped a lot, Ananya. If this child is able to convince the mother and take her to therapy, things will become better. That's the best way to deal, because these are all adults. They know a lot.
If they can't convince, is there a therapy for the child?
Of course.
That they can understand how to deal with that person, because like I have realized that talking to this person that they won't go to therapy themselves.
Right. Yes, I agree. Yes, definitely. So the child can go to therapy, he can go to counseling, and then he can approach, I'm sure there'll be so many psychologists who will be able to help him and give him tools and strategies to deal with his mother.
Yeah, that's what I was like curious about. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yes.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. We appreciate greatly the satsang. It is 4 a.m. in Germany, and I didn't know how I'm going to do it, but your beautiful charisma and spirit woke me up, and I assume everybody else very much enjoyed our satsang together.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Okay, one